In the bleak annals of human history, World War I stands as a stark testament to man's capacity for unspeakable cruelty. This was a time when the veneer of civilization was stripped away, revealing a darkness that still haunts us to this day. The opening salvo of this global conflict was fired in 1914, and with it began a 4-year-long nightmare of unimaginable atrocities. These were not mere acts of war, they were crimes against humanity, violations of the most basic principles of human decency and respect for life. In the early days of the war, the German Empire, in a bid to swiftly neutralize Belgium and France, implemented the Schlieffen Plan. This strategy called for a rapid advance through neutral Belgium, but in the process, German forces committed egregious acts of violence against civilians. Whole towns were burned, cultural monuments destroyed, and innocent men, women, and children were massacred, an event that came to be known as the Rape of Belgium. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, the Russian Empire was waging its own campaign of terror against ethnic minorities within its borders. Jews in particular were targeted in a series of brutal pogroms. Thousands were killed, their homes and businesses razed to the ground in a wave of ethnic cleansing that would foreshadow the horrors of World War II. The Ottoman Empire too was guilty of monstrous crimes. The Armenian genocide, beginning in 1915, saw the systematic extermination of 1.5 million Armenians. Men were conscripted into labor battalions where they were worked to death, while women, children, and the elderly were subjected to death marches through the Syrian desert. And let us not forget the horrors of chemical warfare, a grim innovation of World War I. Both the Allied and Central powers made use of deadly gases, such as chlorine and mustard gas, with devastating effects. Soldiers choked to death on the battlefield, their lungs corroded by these insidious weapons, while civilians living near the front lines also fell victim to these indiscriminate attacks. As we reflect on these harrowing events, we must remember that they were not the actions of a few rogue individuals, but the result of calculated strategies implemented by nations. The mechanized slaughter of World War I marked a new era in warfare, one where civilian populations were targeted on an unprecedented scale, and where the rules of war were cast aside in the pursuit of victory. In the aftermath of the war, the world was left to grapple with the enormity of these crimes. The impact was profound, shaping the course of the 20th century and beyond. It led to the establishment of international laws and tribunals to prosecute war crimes, setting a precedent for future conflicts. Yet, the legacy of World War I's crimes against humanity is a complex one. It is a stark reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink in times of conflict, but it also serves as a rallying cry for justice, accountability, and the preservation of human rights. The echoes of this dark chapter in our history continue to resonate, a grim testament to the enduring impact of these crimes on the human psyche. We must never forget these atrocities, for in remembering, we honor the victims and strengthen our resolve to ensure that such horrors are never repeated. The lessons of World War I are as relevant today as they were a century ago. They serve as a stark reminder that the preservation of our shared humanity must always be our highest priority.